Hello, class of Advanced International Political Economy at Akhawayn University. Please, for today, I would like us to go back to our discussion of Marxism since we postponed that session. For this discussion of Marxism, I want us to focus on understanding the key principles of Marxist theory as a doctrine that goes beyond an economic understanding, as it helps explain an approach in international politics of domination and imperialism. In liberalism, as you might know, there was a key influence of utilitarian philosophers regarding the idea of justice. When we talk about the ethical and norm-making drive in liberalism, we may have in mind the group of philosophers for whom, if the results are fair, then the rules are justified, including limiting liberties. Another important group of liberal philosophers, including John Locke and Robert Nozick, who became extremely important for liberal theory, advocated that what really mattered is that the rules are fair, not necessarily the results, i.e. guaranteeing liberties. So this enforced the rise of property in economic societies, which is central to the development of capitalism, and Marxism came as a critique to such property rules. Marx particularly opposed the holding of means of production as it was problematic to establishing a more equal society. For our understanding of Marxism in international political economy, we need to see the relationship between Marxism and international relations. Marxism rejects the liberal and the realist theories of orthodox views of international political economy, because as opposed to mainstream economics that deals with the rationality, individualism, equilibrium nexus, heterodox economics is more radical in dealing with the institutions, history, social structure nexus, meaning actors should not only be conceived as atomistic conceptions, as they can also be socially embedded. There is the influence of historical processes that are discounted in classical economics, and lastly, there is a dialectic, meaning this exchange between structure and agency. Most importantly, for the Marxian heterodox view or radical view, there is a rejection of market equilibrium because we do not account for the distortion of asymmetric access to information. As we said, the key approach of Marxism was a critique of capitalism, a so-called organization of social order supported by mercantilist and liberal ideologies. With mercantilism, we saw the rise of wage laborers with the fall of feudalism. And with liberalism, we saw the rise of capital owning class with the rise of property. For Marx, capitalism had led to significant expansion of wealth. However, it needed to be corrected because it alienated people into social classes and prevented them from fulfilling a greater potential. So he liked what capitalism did, but he thought we could do better because there is more potential for expanding production. The problem is that capitalism leads to privatized and depoliticized societies, so we need to tackle those two sort of evils. Now on the problem of capitalism as an imperialist doctrine. So this is economically deterministic. Marxist theorists argue that capitalist accumulation, which is what drives production, is also what drives major capitalist countries into colonial expansion, creating the potential for inter-imperialist rivalry on a global scale. Again, we have seen this with both mercantilism and liberalism. Now let's review some key arguments from Robert Gilpin's reading. First, there was an important definition of ideology as a system of understanding beyond theory, because there is also a total belief requirement. For the liberal economics, Adam Smith and other Enlightenment voices tried to show the spontaneity of markets in addressing human needs. This presupposed access to information. Gilpin believed that this is an orthodox and bourgeois economic approach, in the sense of interest serving to the bourgeoisie. He talked about how there is no free lunch. Remember, that is connected to what we said in class, because there are always costs. Also, relative gains differ. But we defined a free lunch for our production possibility frontier as a no opportunity cost choice. There is also a problem of liberal economics in clearly addressing the state role, which provides an edge for two other theories Gilpin talks about, mercantilism and Marxism. For nationalist mercantilist economics, and there are insightful links to slave trade, as seen with Professor Shouki Hamel, we may have a market driven by demand, so likely to be conflictual. However, this self-centeredness of mercantilism seems to be good for competition in international liberal context. Yet mercantilism allows also for an international division of labor consistent with political and economic interests, or rather say possibilities, for different countries. In Marxist economics, capitalism is already considered a global economy, yet the international relations explaining was missing at first. Soviets and Chinese Marxist adaptation will first bring about a more revolutionary approach to international relations, as supported by Lenin. Gilpin also talked about the other Marxist international relations theorization possibility of egalitarian, social democratic and liberal approach as advanced by Bernstein and Kautsky, that we can use maybe to understand the more recent turn in Chinese international politics of becoming a more assertive voice for international governance. Gilpin highlights four key elements of Marxist writings. First, the dialectical approach in the sense of reality being dynamic and conflictual, which challenges a liberal conception of harmony and equilibrium. Second, a materialist approach to history in the sense that changes in production are the motors of history. Third, the capitalist development experience as one of modernization. And lastly, fourth, the idea that a moral commitment to socialism is a better deal for our communities. Every one of these four key elements relates to the dynamic of class struggle. Marx contends that capitalism as a system of private ownership and wage labor is the most productive system out there. But three laws challenge its survival. First, the law of disproportionality. As opposed to Say's law, the supply-demand loop doesn't match. We then get overproduction, and that is due to a sort of anarchy of markets. And here we have the Keynesian argument in favor of regulation. We can also think about it in terms of stocks, so holding much storage. The law of accumulation, since So this is the second law. Since the risk-taking gambling incentive in capitalism creates concentration of wealth and thus inequalities. And thirdly, the law of falling rates of profit, because ultimately such a system gets exhausted and we see a decreasing performance. Each one of these laws relates to the threat of rebellion, revolution that is likely to destroy capitalism. Now, if we look at cycles of recession in our recent history, it seems that indeed capitalism abides by these laws and it is therefore irrational to sustain. To conclude here, I ask you to watch Michael Moore's Capitalism, a Love Story, to think and reflect about how some triggers, experiences, and political dynamics of the great financial crisis of 2007 shown in the documentary could help understand a Marxist critique of capitalist systems. Please let me know if you have any questions about the readings, about understanding Marxism, and about how we can connect our scholarly discussion to the documentary. Thank you. Goodbye.